All right, so I mentioned in either the video or in the description prior that I was going to do a little look into some of the configuration files before I jump back in to actually do some more playing and properly control a tower. So this is the Tower Simulator 3 folder, and the specific config files that I'm going to be looking at are all labeled as CSV or comma separated values. You can open these in Notepad if you don't have a Excel or spreadsheet application, but if you do have Excel or a spreadsheet application, it works the best. There are a number of these located in a bunch of different areas, and they do a couple of different things that are really neat. Now, they talked about this in their development on the Feel Their forums leading into it, which is great. I do wish some of these things were embedded within the game settings options, but it is still nice to be able to configure some of these. I don't think I'm going to mess with them for a little while. I kind of want to get used to things before I start tweaking everything and then screw myself up, just so it's a little easier for me to go back, undo, redo, or figure it out. So again, I'm in the basic Tower Simulator 3 folder. I did purchase on Steam, so Steam Apps, Common, Tower, exclamation Simulator 3, and there are two config files in here. The first one, jobs, let's pull that up. This neat little file is basically all of those default career mode maps that I showed in the game. So this gives you the level, gives you the name of the file, morning coffee, just another day. See, these are the TIST ones that I called out. And then it basically gives you what runways to control, the start of the shift, end of the shift, cloud types, cloud coverage, more cloud information, rain amounts, enchances, fog, wind information, the outcome payment in points, and then a brief description. Now, the only thing I haven't found yet, again, I haven't really dug into everything, is a description of what these cloud types are. I'm not sure. There may be some standard ATS language out there that says a cloud 4 is cumulus or whatever it may be. I honestly don't know. But it is still nice that they allow you to come in here and configure these things. The old Tower 3D Pro files were all Notepad CSVs, and they were a mess to deal with. It was a big pain. I remember when I was making schedules, I built a massive formulaed spreadsheet that allowed me to cut this, add this, concatenate this, remove that, look for this, if that, then this. And then it would basically allow me to error check and build the schedules as I went through the system. This gives you a lot more information so you don't have to guess, and because it's just a simple Excel file, it's much easier to mess with and edit and then create a backup and modify things. So those are the jobs. But it is also nice that you can come in here and create a new level 6, level 7, level 8, level 9, create yourself a bunch of new challenges. The only downside here is that from my current understanding, the career mode only uses the default aircraft. I mentioned in the video descriptions I have purchased the real world traffic in color, which is basically real traffic in real color from the old Tower 3D Pro system. They released an updated version, of course, but basically you can't use that in career mode. You have to use their defaults. So while I do want to play career mode, it's not something I really see myself doing because I can't use the real world traffic. And for me, it's more fun to deal with Southwest, and in the video I posted the other day, Dolomites and all these other European and American and South American and Asian aircraft and airlines. It's more fun for me. Scoring. So this is an interesting way to come in here and modify the outcomes. I don't know why I'm doing this the slow way, but you can come in here and modify the outcomes of different events. So you can see a message, you get a crash, it's a fatal negative, gives you minus points. It's just kind of interesting. I don't understand exactly what the formula itself is doing mathematically. That could be me just not knowing that aspect of Excel, or it could be simply some other aspect of the game file that will read these as different multipliers and apply them in a certain way. I don't know, but it is cool that you can come in here and play around with it to figure out what things do. So that's the main folder. There's a number of other things I want to look at in here. And if you look at the folder, and if you've ever been in the default Tower 3D Pro folder, it looks very similar. I don't know if you have to do any batch file to apply the logging of information so that you can export it. I only just thought about that, which is interesting. But that's okay, something to look at another time. So most of these just contain different aspects of the game file, so nothing we really need to mess with. Different languages that are currently installed, which is nice. Core files, and then we get into airports, where we'll come back, and airplanes. And this is where you can see a unique aspect of what I was just talking about in the career mode stuff. So in Tower 3D, you basically replaced all of the original aircraft with the new ones in real traffic and real color. In this, the defaults all still exist for career mode. And then Yurji's design, again, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation of that. This is all the real world traffic and real world stuff. And you can see the amount of airplanes that are in here, a good amount, definitely some new ones. And that's great to see. You have the option to see both, so there's less chance of screwing something up with the game. You can still go in there and play with the defaults, and that's kind of what some of those drop downs did. But when I next load the game to do a playthrough, I will show you that, because I'm going to do two things in the new video, but you'll see that when we get there. Moving into airports. These are the airports that came with the game, and you have a nice listing right here of all the airports that exist in the system. Latitude, longitude, IATA codes. In the old one, you had to use like the long IATA and then the short IATA, ATA, whatever, and then you had all these other things. This is a little more simplistic, in my opinion, and a little better of a setup, but there are currently 2,328 logged airports in here, which is pretty cool to see. And you can, of course, add and modify that, and I'm sure as other aspects of the game do, they'll add to that. Next, I want to get into an airport. Now, each airport has a very similar layout. Give you a nice little predefined picture of the airport. The package information just gives you some basic write-up on the runways, the parameters, descriptions. Again, things you could probably modify, but you don't really need to. They give you a link to the location so you can go Google Map it, which is pretty cool. And a lot of other nifty info. Actually, I need to move that again. Next, we've got the assets, standard listing of things in the game. Databases we'll come right back to. Instruments, hey, that's kind of interesting. We'll look at that in a second. And those are your main folders. So, moving into databases, again, you have your default listing for the generic that come with the game, and then you have your real world, real traffic stuff, which is fantastic. So again, in the old one, if you were doing custom schedules for real traffic and real color, you had to back up everything. In this case, if you screw it up, you might still want to back it up, but if you do mess something up and you don't have a backup, you can still go play the game on the defaults, which is just something I like, not having to replace every aspect of the game. These files are all the exact same files that existed in the game prior. But again, it's a comma-separated system, so it's a lot easier to come in here and add to these and modify them. Some of these are very similar to the old ones. Others, such as frequencies, are completely new, which is fun. Oops, I don't need that one. And I want this one, and read back. All right, so what you can see in this is the listing of the actual frequency, and then what it actually is, what you say, what the readback will be, and what they're actually controlling. This is what I mentioned in the multiplayer, where you can come in and actually configure who's going to do what job. So if you know that terminal A, B, and C are the busiest at the airport, and terminals, whatever these are not so busy, then you can come in here and remap this. You can create a new frequency, or you can go get one of the realistic ones from the actual LAX information available online, and you can move a couple of these terminals up to the other ground frequency. Lots of airports have multiple ground frequencies. The bigger the airport, the more ground frequencies they're going to have, which gives you a fantastic option to split the airport up into multiple control areas and make multiplayer a lot more fun. Any plane landing on the north side of the airport, hey, guess what? Here's the runways at this airport. Move those off to the other side. This is tower, and these are the things, runways and directions that they'll be landing on. So make it easy. Stick them up there. Departure, well, departure's just, hey, go over there and do their thing. I'm not sure exactly what the departure role in multiplayer would be, or if anybody's actually going to play that role. I think that's more just the actual handoff. But you can create another departure section, so if you want to split the north and the south of the airport by moving these two runways to one group, these two runways to the other group, you can do that now, which I think is just awesome. Now, I never played Tower 3D multiplayer because, again, I have no friends, so I'll just call myself out like that. What I am interested to know is, because you have this listing of what to say, I really am curious if in a regular single-player session, I can simply say contact tower or contact ground or contact departure on 120.8. I think that would be very interesting to do. And I'm also curious, I don't think the game will do it because right now it doesn't give you, basically this is what I have to say, but I know a lot of pilots would cut off the 1 because it's common and just say 20.8. But I will have to try that next time I'm in the game, and I actually am at an airport where I may know the frequency or remember that this file exists. But I think that's an awesome thing to do. General aviation, basically the exact same as the old game. These 3 school options are a little different, but they are neat to see that you have these options. So if I want to come in here and say you're going to do a stop and go, you're going to do a touch and go, and you're just going to do a low approach. It's really cool that you get to do these things and make it a little easier. And then you can even modify the color of these coming in because you know they're going to be doing something unique, so you can make them stand out. That's one of the things I was calling out in the other video when we got in the tower, because it really needs to be a way to define the different things, and they do let you. I just, again, wish it was more GUI based instead of all text config file based. It just takes us back into the old days of gaming. It's not a problem because this is a kind of more indie game, but it's just, again, small peeve. But it is fantastic that we now have these options. This is the general schedule. Again, the exact same layout, just in Excel. Thank you very much. The 2 options here that are a little different is the approach altitude override. I'm not sure why I would use this specifically, but I do know some planes may be running some special approach, something special, and they may need to be configured that way. So being able to come in here and say, you know what, you are going to approach lower is great. The limitation I see on this is at this time, I, in the tower, don't really have to do anything with the approaching aircraft as far as altitude and all of that. I'm sure I can still stick them in patterns. I don't see anything in the config files, spoiler alert, that really lets me play with the patterns or that I have to do anything with the aircraft in that pattern or anything like that. So I'm not sure that they advanced the simulation aspect of it forward any on that, but again, still some nice additions. Special instructions, I'm not sure what all of these are, but it does kind of give you some neat information that these are regional aircraft. Don't see any at the moment, but it also can call out cargo or anything else unique about the aircraft that may help me understand what's going on. So like these may be potentially international flights. It's not. It's Frontier, and it's coming from Atlanta going to LaGuardia, so it's not exactly an international, but it could be the plane type. That's a Brickyard. It's running an Embraer. You're an A20neo. So again, I don't know. These Embraers are going to be smaller jets, I believe, kind of like an MD-80 style. And that's probably what it's calling out in regional. So it's just giving it a different approach speed and different information like that. That's my guess. But again, cool things that they've added to the game. Final one is terminals. And this one got quite a bit of an update. It's again the same basic layout, But now you have a lot more options that you can actually do, which is pretty cool. So these are all the terminals at this particular airport. And then you list, just like you did in the old one, the airline codes for which airplanes are allowed at each terminal. Now, I'm a little surprised in this, again, this is the real world one, that Spirit Wings has such a presence at LaGuardia that they own all of Terminal A. I've never been to LaGuardia, but it just kind of surprises me for a smaller budget airline that they own that much of the airport. But by the same token, Terminal A also doesn't really have that many gates, so maybe it makes sense. Moving down the list, again, you can just see as you populate them all, the neat addition to this is the fact that you can define the available gates. Now, what I'm curious about on this is if you can specifically go down and create another Terminal B, create another listing of specific airlines here, like say American. I want to assign them B14 through 20 because that is really what they're assigned to, or I just want to make it more realistic. Then I'm curious if I could just insert a new line, copy all this down, delete these B's from all these other airlines, and then just stick these for American. That to me would be an awesome customization. Right now it's just kind of a quote-unquote catch-all. And that's similar to what they've got here. So it's interesting the way they've called this out. So the asterisk is kind of like your catch-all, I believe. So you've got like Delta's allowed on Terminal C, but Delta, Endeavor, and Brickyard are basically all allowed to overflow to Terminal D. And I'm not curious what the asterisks mean. To me, it just kind of means some sort of catch-all, like they're a duplication and they're allowed to go to those two areas. And then this one, it's a catch-all for all general aviation airplanes where they're allowed to go there. And then this is a catch-all for general aviation and cargo. The only difference is I don't see a cargo call out at this airport like at LAX, and that could simply be because LaGuardia wouldn't really handle cargo traffic outside of a light aircraft. I don't know, but it's just my guess. But again, it's really cool that you have all these options. Now, it also says that you don't need the gate prefix for this list. I'm not sure exactly what that means. My understanding is that I could just simply take the number of gates out of it and just say Terminal A, NKS, A. Now it says terminal gate road names, so I don't need to necessarily list the gate, but like some gates may have different drive-up paths. If you've seen any of my flight simulator videos, then you'll notice that at some of the gates when I'm arriving, there may be 3 entry lines to get to the same gate, and those are just different positions for airplane separation depending on the plane size that's actually parking at the gate, so that the gangway can actually connect to the airplane, that the airplane's wings are separated and everything's lined up properly. I don't know what that means exactly, but it seems like it means that, but it's kind of interesting. So something to look into in the future. All right, that's it for your basic schedule. Now I want to go back to instruments. These are ones that I definitely would like to play with, but it'll take me a little while. And I mentioned you can change a lot of the colors on things. The ADIRS and Deep Right are going to be basically the same. One's going to be your ground radar, one's going to be your aerial radar, so I'm not going to look at both files. There may be a couple slight differences in them, but overall you're going to be looking at the same type of a setup. I guess I'll open the other one just for a second. Now these on the left are going to be the label of what you're changing, and on the right it's going to be basically the RGB color codes to actually set everything up. And you'll see a lot of commonalities and copy pastes in here, which is why I said when you click on things, certain things don't change. So like the background color is this, rotation at this particular airport is this, which is probably your default for tower position and how you're looking at the ground, which is great. Road color, road area thickness, road outline color, taxiway color, taxiway thickness, runway color, runway thickness, terminal color, blah, 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 blah. So you can separate all these different colors and come up with your own custom scheme. You would just have to Google the hex code. That's not hex code, sorry, the RGB color breakdown. and then just bring those in and set it up, and you'll be able to make changes to anything you want, which is, again, pretty cool to be able to come into this. I'm not sure what eye color is specifically. I'm sure some of these will stand out a little easier once I've had more time in game. These are the ones that I really wanted to be able to edit in game, and you can see some of these are set very similar. So like airplane color arrive is this color. Airplane color call sign arrive, same color. So this is the dot, I assume, and this is the actual call sign. Then you've got your departure, airplane selected, color arrive. You can see right here, it's the exact same. So if I've clicked on arrival, it's not going to change. So the first thing I would potentially change on here is coming in for RGB code for white. Now I could just use Photoshop, but if I want white, then the actual decimal code for RGB is 255255, and that's it. Right here, road text color. There's the white. I could just drop that right down in place of that, and next time I play that game, when I select the aircraft, it will pop up a beautiful white, which is kind of what I wanted. But before I do that, I'm going to play the game a little more, and I'm going to try to come up with some more easy basic color schemes that I can do. I don't mind some of their colors, so like the purple for the departures, and then kind of the orange for the arrival on the ground radar, and then in the air, I'd like to mirror that a little bit for certain aircraft and certain things, but again, it's just kind of cool that you can now come in here and do that. So I just wanted to highlight that out. Area, I have no idea what this means. I believe this might be the zoom of the area on the map, but all these numbers are a little bit different. I think this one's copied, but again, I'm not sure what this means, so something to look into. And then you've got your D-Bright, which should be very much the same. There's a few less options because you don't have to deal with quite the same amount of things, but you've got your ILS lines, ring colors, background should be black, airport, the thickness, all that good stuff, and then you've got all your information for that. And airplane marker type, old style, dotted. There's no options here. I would expect like a drop-down menu or a key somewhere that tells me what I can pick. Maybe they'll add more in the future, but I think that's pretty cool that you can come in here and do that. And again, I still have no idea what the area means, and I'm noticing some of these are the same, so I'm guessing it's just like default zoom or something, but a great option. Next, you've got your strips. Same type of setup where you've got your width of the options. Here's where I'm a little confused because I don't know what any of these really mean specifically by default. And let me expand that out of the way. There we go. Yeah, there it is. So if it's a tower arrival or a ground departure, these are the headers, and I guess it's just the width of the header. Why are these different? My assumption here is that these are the planes coming in ready for me to pick them up, and so the header's a little smaller. Once I've picked them up, it expands to give me more information, and I'm assuming these are the different runways. See, it expands out. And this is what I meant by I'm a little confused. You've got your color, the text color, the runway listings for this particular part of it. Next takes you to bin, size of 50%. I don't know if that's the size of the text or what. Strip block, I have no idea what that means. And if you expand this one, you've got next takes you to arrival, which is that one. Call sign BTN. These are the different arrival runways, colors, so you can still mess with some of that. Yeah, there it is, pending. And then this is the active ones. Next takes you to bin, and you can bin it. So it does kind of flow, but there's no real explanation about all of these. So you've got the header background color, text color. This one's size is 100%. I still don't know what that size means and why this one is not the same size, but interesting. The colors here are listed in this manner, so it's a little kind of confusing when you first open it. But again, there's not a ton of explanation about all of this. Like the grid color, is this the black lines that separate the grid? What is this? So the text doesn't change for certain things, but then why does it do it in certain other areas? So just a few things to dig into and a few nitpicky complaints on the lack of a key. Weather look, I have no idea what this is. I believe this is the screen that lists the runway, because that's the one to the right that showed the direction of traffic landing and what type of planes you're currently allowing in and out of the airport. I believe that's what this is. But again, there's still no full explanation. To me, the weather look is when I popped my head up and looked out the window. So just a bit of confusion. Gives me the different runway options. And again, the colors and breakdown of all that. Mostly this is a gray screen, which is fine. I don't see myself changing this too much. But anyway, those are the configs. So a lot more to go in and play with. And it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm very thankful that they allow us to come in here and mess with some of these things now. I mentioned earlier that you don't have to make quite as many backups of things, but if you're going to start messing with the different airport instruments and the setups of that, I definitely would recommend backing up your files. The reason I also say that is if you find a look that works for you across the board, then you can copy paste that and apply it across the board. And the other benefit of that is you can set up a couple of different profiles. I wish you could do this in game, but if you're going to control an airport in the daytime, you may want a different color scheme than if you're controlling it at night. And that's a very interesting thing that you can now do. You could probably set it into a high contrast mode for nighttime, whereas the daytime you can have maybe a more natural look. Just something interesting to consider. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.